Learn to edit. I'm just saying.
You've not watched them, then, have you?
I have watched them.
I am editing.
So edit all this part out.
But this is the fun part. Because they see that you, in real life, you do tease me to the nth degree.
It's the way that Dave knows that I love it.
Don't love me so much, John. Will you please?
You
Hello.
wish I loved him a little less.
We're back after a 3-week absence. I really
Shalom
apologize, guys. You know, I explain in other videos. You guys know MS is a crappy disease, and I just couldn't get out of bed.
Excuse.
Yeah. So, a lot of things to talk about today. A lot of questions people are bringing in. Good questions. I really appreciate the questions. They want to know, because they're not willing or not able to go to your website, the number one question that I get a lot is justify being a Christian and carrying a gun. So, if you'll give them a ballpark definition or your explanation.
Okay, well, I tell you what, the better way to do that, the best way to do that, if Dave can remember, his MS he uses for every excuse in the book, so he probably will forget to put a link in the description, and if he does, that's on him. But if I can get him not to, I will put a link here on my blog to, I have a 4-part series on Christianity and self-defense. That's a far better place to go, okay? Read those. That's a much more cogent discussion of that. I don't believe that Jesus was a pacifist. I don't believe that that was his overarching thing. Here's why I believe that self-defense is acceptable. Number one, I'm a bearer of the image of God. Every person that I know is a bearer of the image of God. I can go all the way back to Genesis 5, and when Cain murdered his brother Abel, God held him accountable for that. So, I mean, this is before there were governments. This is, you know, God looked at what Cain did in taking the life of his brother without justification, and it grieved God. So, grievous bodily harm is not allowed by him. And as a bearer of the image of God, that's Genesis 1, 26 and 27, I have the right to defend the image of God within me. There's a whole lot more discussion, but here's the short version, all right? As a bearer of the image of God, I have a right to life. Now, Romans chapter 13, God says that, God using the Apostle Paul says that we should submit to the governing authorities, okay? So that's a whole other issue. I'm not talking about, you know, shooting at cops and stuff like that. That is, I think, a sin against God. But in Luke chapter 22, verses 35 to 38, Jesus talks to his disciples about the fact that he's leaving them and that he is going to go away. This is right before his betrayal, his crucifixion. And he says, look, I'm going away, and you're going to have to take care of yourselves from here on out. Now, I believe the Gospel of Luke is a discipleship manual. It's actually going to be the thesis of my, it's going to be my doctoral thesis, is using Luke as a discipleship manual. But, and in that, he tells them they need to go out and spread the message in chapter 22. And in verse 36, one of the interesting things he says is, let he who has no cloak sell his, or sword, no sword rather, sell his cloak and buy one. And that word for sword there, it's not a hunting implement. If you're interested or you know the language, it's the Greek machaira. That's the description of the sword that the Roman soldiers carried. It was a defensive implement. It was an implement of war, not a tool or a hunting item or a butcher's tool. And so, and they said, well, Jesus, all we have is 2 swords for the 12 of us. And he says, okay, that's enough. I mean, not everybody has to be armed, but he authorizes his disciples to protect themselves against brigands. The reason is, again, they're going to be out there in the Roman world, and there's a ton of roads. I mean, that was the beauty of the Roman Empire. It connected the world, the known world at the time, via roads. But there wasn't a police presence everywhere. It wasn't safe. And so there was robbers, brigands, thugs, murderers, and Jesus said, arm yourself against that. Be prepared to protect yourself. We know that the taking of life can't be wrong in every instance. God commands it in places. Therefore, not all taking of human life is wrong. It's not all murder. There can be justifiable homicide. So when I look at Christianity and self-defense, what I look at is that there certainly has to be a broad discussion about what's acceptable for a Christian and how that works. But is it completely prohibited for a Christian to defend themselves? Absolutely not. I don't think so from a biblical perspective. I believe that obviously the response has to be reciprocal, You know, it's actually ensconced in many states. I'm not a lawyer, okay?
Nope.
So don't take this as legal advice. But many states have a justifiable homicide law or a self-defense law that says, look, if you're under the threat of great bodily harm or of death, then you can meet that threat. And so our laws actually reflect what I think is a good biblical ethic, that if I can get out of there, I want to get out of there. Escape or evade, right? That's a far better than engagement.
Best way to stay out of a fight is not be there.
Not be there when it starts, right? Best self-defense, most times I think if somebody's pissed off at you, the best way to defend yourself is to smile at them, shake their hand, and buy them a beer. You know? Even if that means you got to eat your pride a little bit. But I don't think it's completely unauthorized. Read the articles. I'd love your interactions on them. You're more
I will post those in the description box below. The next big question that we get is, we have not had a chance to meet in the last couple of weeks. Romney Ryan. What do you think about Ryan as his choice of VP?
Why do you want me to get
We talked about religion. We're going to talk about politics. Let's talk about all the stuff that people say never bring up.
So next week, be ready for money and sex, evidently. I mean, okay, are we talking from a purely, like a Second Amendment perspective?
Well, pretty much. That, you know, everybody probably knows by now, you know, it's been 10 days since he picked him, that the NRA has given Ryan an A+.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's tons of pictures floating around the internet of Paul Ryan, you know, holding up his trophy bucks, and you know what I mean. He hunts with a shotgun too, and so he's got birds. You know what I mean. He's a hunter, and so the guy, I love that. You know what I mean. I think that's great.
There's been discussions all over the place about that he picked Ryan because he wants to get, you know, a large demographic of the Catholics to like him, because the Catholics don't like him because he's Mormon, and how much of religion is in this discussion of who's going to lead this country next.
Well, and I've said before, you know, I know people that say, okay, well, I won't vote for Romney because he's a Mormon. This is the same argument that was leveled against Kennedy on the other side in the 60s. I mean, okay, and Kennedy, a Democratic president, obviously, not a Republican, but, you know, one of the big arguments the Republicans had was, oh, well, you can't elect a Catholic to be the president because then the Pope will run America. Now they're saying the same thing about Romney.
Salt Lake City.
You know, the Salt Lake City will run America. I don't buy it. I don't think he did that when he was governor of Massachusetts. And I don't think he'll do that as the President of the United States. You know, quite frankly, you're asking me because I'm the pastor, right?
Right.
There'll be some flames and some hate on this, Dave, but just bear with me, okay?
Do not dislike this video.
President Obama has self-proclaimed as a Christian. Okay? Seen it on tape, blah, blah, blah. He's not a Muslim. He is self-proclaimed. He says, I am a Christian by choice. I came to that later in life, blah, blah, blah. Fine. If that's what you're going to say, Mr. President, I will believe you. And I will hold you to that. And I can't look inside someone's heart. I can't look and see what they are. So their self-proclamation's all I have to go on. I will say that it does not seem to me that I don't see any outward manifestation that religion or that faith plays an important part in the president's life. Okay? I don't see that plays a significant role in his life. Maybe I'm wrong. Again, that could be a very private thing. They talk about when does the president go to church. Not that going to church makes you a Christian anymore, that going to the garage makes you a car. But I think he's gone once in his presidency that I can remember. I could be wrong there, so please don't flame me for that. But so it doesn't seem like it's a priority in his life. You know, Romney, it seems like his faith is a priority in his life. And from a values perspective, from a social perspective, even though I disagree theologically with Mormonism on several important points, like all of the majors.
No offense to the Mormons
out
there.
No offense. I mean, we just see things differently. We see Jesus differently. We see Scripture differently. We see salvation differently. You know, it's okay. Yay, First Amendment. Practice your religion however you like. But you know, I from that perspective, I wouldn't really create a problem. I think that the Ryan pick from a Second Amendment perspective was very savvy of Romney, because now he's got someone who the NRA loves. And so the conservatives will vote for Ryan, not Romney, the real conservatives.
Right.
The moderates are where the battleground is. You know, they keep saying that demographically America is about 40% conservative, about 40% moderate, and about 20% liberal. So it's the moderates that win or lose elections.
I mean, I was watching some other channels, and when Romney made that flub Saturday morning when he said, the next president of the United States, Paul Ryan, and all these people are discussing on these message boards, what if they elected Romney and Ryan and something happened to Romney between November and January? We're set! You know.
Easy there.
They didn't say something happened to him. Something happened with him. Anyway, maybe Romney was having a premonition or something that way. But I'll tell you, everybody's saying that I've seen is talking about how he wanted him because of his Catholicism and his small town ideals and his hunting background, living on the same street that he was raised on and everything. There's a lot of good things about Ryan. I haven't seen a lot of things bad, except a lot of people said he just handed Obama the presidency.
Oh, no, I don't buy that. Okay, again, if we're going to talk from a Second Amendment perspective, though, here's where I lose my, card-carrying right-wing fundamentalist card. Because from a Second Amendment perspective, President Obama's been awesome.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say that. Now, again, there's going to be flames galore. The bottom line is, he has so far had at least 2 opportunities handed to him on a silver platter to institute stricter gun laws on a federal level. Obviously, the shooting of Congresswoman Giffords, Gabby Giffords, was a big one. I mean, he could have thrown a fit about that. He chose not to. Aurora was obviously the next one that was humongous, and he could have easily thrown a fit, not the least of which is because the guy used an AR-15, and so then, the evil black rifle comes and rears its ugly head again.
And with Jared Loeffner in Tucson, the extended magazines.
Yeah.
And then he gets a Sikh temple. I mean, in Wisconsin, it's like 3 golden chances to start lobbying organizations and starting committees and stuff, and he really hasn't done anything. And the stunning thing to me is that Gabby Giffords, who life was ultimately changed for everything, she's still pro-gun. She's still pro-Second Amendment.
Well, so anyways, in a presidential election, and she is, you're right, I look at religious issues, and I think they're a wash between the candidates personally. I look at Second Amendment issues.
There you go.
I'll say wash. The reality is I got a track record from Obama that's better than Romney's, because Romney signed the assault weapon ban in Massachusetts. What is that going to look like? Maybe he was, trying to throw a bone. To people, that's a pretty big bone to throw to his opponents in Massachusetts, personally. But I'll call it a wash, because I think, I don't think he'd do that as president. So that means there's got to be other issues that we go to decide who we're going to vote for president, in my opinion. What those are, hey, you got to decide that. I don't think that's a forum for a gun blog, but it's just how I feel about it.
That's one of the other questions people were wondering about. And the other question that I really didn't want to talk about details, but there's one of the most popular videos that anybody that has a gun blog does is everyday carry. They want let's see your guns and your knives and everything.
Ooh, toys.
I'm not going to say, okay, here's my belt and here's what we carry, but I will tell you what I carry on a daily basis. I carry my phone, my keys in my wallet, everybody does. I carry, as of last week, and I just got it, was a little flashlight that fits on my belt, and it's just like John's, one size bigger, but it fits in a Velcro case, and I'm going to do a review on it later on today. It's a great little flashlight that has the different...
Mine's littler.
Yeah,
I have the baby version.
He's got the baby version. But the other night at dinner, my wife dumped her purse underneath the table, and she's like, great, I hope I get everything. I pulled out my flashlight and said, oh, yeah, you missed that. You never know when you're going to need this. Plus, it is also a weapon because it does have some pretty nice bevel on it. My gun, 2 extra magazines, and that's it. Now, you carry something on your belt that I don't.